Hey guys, my name is Wildkard and welcome back to my channel. This is Super Rugby Trans-Tasman Round 2. The Western Force hosting the Highlanders at home at the Force Field. Yeah, this was a very close game overall. And despite the score, the Western Force played really well this game. And the Highlanders defense was just way too good. And the Highlanders loose forwards, geez, they were putting in a hell of a shift tonight. And they were definitely MVPs for my pick this game. So many times they were able to alleviate pressure at the breakdown by turning the ball over from the Western Force. It was just amazing performance by the Highlanders loose forwards. Anyway, let's go from the start. So right away in the first half, this is actually a game of two halves. In the first half, the Highlanders were just absolutely dominating the Western Force. Right away, the Highlanders were putting Western Force under pressure, and it just looked like the Highlanders were coming in like stronger than the Western Force. The Force weren't able to go anywhere when they had the ball, and the Highlanders were able to just like attack and gain a lot of territory just from running the ball. Eventually, there was a penalty against the Western Force, and Highlanders opted for a line-out. Line-out went to Aaron Smith, and Aaron Smith just ran off the back of the line-out straight into the 9-10 channel, and then he literally slipped through two defenders. And as the fullback comes in to cover him, he pops the ball inside to Nareki, the speedster for apparently a sevens player for the New Zealand team. Man, no one was going to touch him once he got the ball. He runs straight through, scores a try 11 minutes in for the Highlanders. Hunt gets the kick, 7 points to 0, 12 minutes in. Now, the onslaught continued for the Highlanders after this try. A few minutes later, the Western Force were penalized again. Not a few minutes. 10 minutes later, there was another penalty against Western Force, and Highlanders once again opted to go for a line-out set-piece play. And the Highlanders line-out set-piece are actually really good as well. Their line-out goes in, the line-out comes in, the Highlanders opted for a maul, and there was just too much like power from the Highlanders. There was really good setup for the team, and immediately the Western Force defense was just crumbled, and Johnston goes over for Highlanders' second try from a maul. 22 minutes in. Hunt did not get the kick this time, so luckily the Western Force got off the hook for that. So only 12 points on the board, 22 minutes in. And then at 28th minute, so about 6 minutes later, this is literally like the first time, pretty much the first half, after taking a beating, the Western Force were able to get inside the Highlanders half, and they got a penalty right in front. And Western Force opted for 3 points. Yeah, so this is probably, in hindsight, they probably should have taken more kicks, especially in the second half when they were putting a lot of pressure on the Highlanders. But yeah, they took 3 points. So 3 points to 12, 28 minutes in. However, it only took 3 minutes for the Highlanders to force a penalty of their own inside the Western Force half. And Hunt slots the 3 points in return. 15 points to 3, 31 minutes in. And after this penalty was slotted, the Highlanders were on the attack again. Western Force gave away another penalty, and Highlanders opted for another third, kick the ball out for another line out, very close to the Western Force line. And this is like the Highlanders line out. It's like set piece from a line out seems to be extremely well practiced. So they went for a line out. There was a maul. They set up for a maul. And then Aaron Smith recognized there was a mismatch on the blind side. So he takes the ball out, passes the ball to Gregory, who is a massive boy for a center. He's huge. And he just basically runs into Kubeli and Miotti. And yeah, there was... and he was just too big for both players. And he scores his first try of the night, 35 minutes in. Hunt missed the conversion. And very furious start for the Highlanders. 3 tries already on the board. 35 minutes into the game. So the Force, going to halftime, really wanted to hit back before the halftime. And they did get really, really lucky to score a try before halftime. Would have been a pretty big shutout for the Highlanders if it wasn't for this try on 38th minute. So the Western Force had a line out around the halfway point mark. The ball comes in, goes to Miotti. Miotti was drifting out, and the defense was drifting out with Miotti. And then Miotti just threw this beautiful inside ball to the English superstar, under 20 superstar, Oliver Feller. He ran this beautiful inside angle straight through the Highlander defense, and he was just away. And then there was people coming in to cover him, and as he was getting tackled, he offloads to Tafu, and Tafu runs forward, and then as he's getting tackled, he tries to offload again to Kubeli, and the ball rolls forward. And everyone's thinking, oh, that could have been a knock-on. But the referee didn't blow any whistle, so not everyone kept playing. Kubeli was the only one that was the closest person to the ball. He runs in, scoops up the loose ball, and he was just away. 2 defenders trying to catch him, but he was too fast. He gets there, puts the ball down, right under the sticks. Now, they went back and reviewed this kind of like loose ball from Tafu to Kubeli. It turns out, as Tafu was getting tackled, he tries to pass back to Kubeli, and the Highlander defender kind of like smacked the ball backwards himself. And so it was no knock on, despite the fact that the ball went forward, since it went off the Highlanders' hand. Try time, Kubeli, very, very lucky for the Force to get that try just before halftime. Miotti gets the conversion, 10 points to 20 going to halftime. And Force was hanging in there. That was the first half was basically a big onslaught for Highlanders. And it looked very lucky for the Force to even get 10 points on the board. And it was just like the Highlanders' execution was very good. The line-out set piece was spectacular. All 3 tries came from their line-out set piece. And it was just, the Force got a bit outclassed in the first half. Very lucky to get away with 10 points, in fact. Second half starts. You were thinking, okay, the Force really needs to lift it up. And the second half was a very, very, very good performance by the Force. The Force played like a different team in the second half, basically. The Highlanders were, the roles were basically reversed. The Highlanders were just under the pump for pretty much the entire second half. And there was only, the Western Force were just putting pressure on. And the Highlanders' loose forwards were just able to diffuse the pressure at very critical moments. And the defense for the Highlanders was just absolute sublime. The Western Force got really close to the try line many times. And then they were just not able to convert it to points. And Highlanders were able to diffuse it again and again. And the loose forwards were able to just turn the ball over in the breakdown. When the Western Force attacks, and there's a slight, if the Western Force forwards were slightly too slow in the breakdown, the Highlanders loose forwards would just be instantly there, turn the ball over. It was really, really impressive to watch. The Highlanders loose forwards, probably the best loose forwards in the New Zealand competition. They were instrumental in Highlanders' win against the Crusaders. Despite the fact that Highlanders are the 3rd highest ranked team in the competition, they are actually the only team who's beaten the Crusaders at home, away. So in Christchurch. So very impressive. And a large part of their win came from their forward pack just being able to diffuse pressure from the Crusaders. And that's pretty much what they did in this game in the second half against the Western Force. Again and again and again, Western Force was so frustrating to watch, not able to convert any of their pressure into tries. But the Force really stepped up the game in the second half. However, eventually there was a Highlanders were kind of like attacking at one point. Eventually, very unfortunately, Greg Holmes goes in for the tackle and he smacks the Highlander player on the head. So the Highlander player was kind of like, it was really a bit unavoidable. So the Highlander player was like running in and he was ducking down really low and he was kind of like propelling himself forward into the tackle. So Greg Holmes was, a big giant prop. He's kind of like, he's already bending down, but he really can't go lower. Like, the only way he could be lower than this Highlander player to tackle him is to be like on his knees and pretty much almost flat on his like hands, like on his knees, like almost flat on the ground to be able to be lower, to make a lower tackle, to be lower than the ball carrier. So there's really not much he can do, but he probably could have managed his hands a bit better instead of hitting him in the head, maybe get him by the shoulder. But yeah, he smacks him in the head. The mitigating factor was that the Highlander player was ducking, obviously, and kind of diving downwards. So direct contact to the head, yellow card. I thought maybe you should have been just a penalty and not a yellow card. But yeah, that's the rules. Very unfortunate. Nick Berry, he's the Australian referee, so he did a really good job. He didn't just like try to, play favoritism for the Australian team and give him an out here. But I thought, yeah, it was very good referee. He's pretty consistent with what the World Rugby expectations are these days. Greg Holmes has to be off for 10 minutes. And this resulted in the fourth try for the Highlanders. And this is literally probably the only time Highlanders actually had an opportunity to put some like realistic attack into the Western Force half. And they scored this time. And this is the only time they had in the second half. The only pretty much realistic opportunity they had to score in the second half. And yeah, it was very, very unfortunate for the Western Force. So they kicked the ball out from the penalty. They set up a maul. And the maul, again, kind of gets close. Didn't quite go over. I think there was a lack of numbers for the Western Force. So Richard Kahui was in the maul, like trying to defend the rolling maul. As you can see, as you know, Kahui is a back. He's a winger. Anyway, the ball, again, Aaron Smith immediately identified that there was a mismatch. The maul like stopped. He immediately identified there was a mismatch in the blind side because like Richard Kahui was in there in the maul and everything. So on the blind side was Mioti and Kubeli was still in the field at this time. So Mioti and Kubeli on the blind side. And he passes the ball to number 10, Hunt. And Hunt runs into Mioti, who was on the wing. And he passes, as he was, getting pushed out of sideline, he passed the ball back into Gregory, the big center for the Highlanders. And Gregory runs over Kubeli on the inside. Try time for Highlanders. It's a bit of a consistent theme for the Western Force defense, isn't it? 3 tries resulted in a break from the 9 and 10 channel. I've mentioned before in my channel, Mioti's tackle is not very good, and Kubeli seems to also be a bit of defensive liability. He did try though. It's not like he didn't try, but maybe Highlanders identify that because you can see that Gregory is being like funneled into the two fellas because the Mioti and Kubeli are both like much smaller than Gregory. So it's pretty obvious Highlanders had this, identified this defensive issue in the Western Force backline and specifically had a big person like Gregory to run at the defense there. So this is the second try for Gregory. Third time a try has resulted in the 9-10 channel for the Western Force. And second try, Gregory, second time off the 9 where Gregory ran over Kubeli, basically, for the second try, for his second try, and fourth try for the Highlanders. So yeah, in the future, the Western Force really need to do something about that defense in the 10-9 channel, because that is a glaring liability for the team. Very unfortunate. And and then Western Force managed pretty well to not concede any more points whilst the yellow cards were ticking away. Eventually, Western Force were back in full outfit, and basically this try was kind of like the nail in the coffin for the Western Force, because that really put the Force in a position they have to score more than 2 eyes. They have to score 2 converted tries and like a penalty or something to win. That was really push it out of the reach from that yellow card. Eventually, the Western Force were back to full strength and putting a lot of pressure back on the Highlanders again. And again, Highlanders were able to defuse the situation. There was one point where the Western Force had a 5-meter line out, and then they kind of went to more, and then they kind of got, and then the ball comes out, goes into a rack, and Highlander just straight away turns the ball over. Just small things like that really hurt the Western Force in the second half. Despite the fact that Western Force was almost in a dominating position against the Highlanders, they were not able to go over the line. Eventually, Western Force did get a consolation try at 78th minute. It was a bit too late to really get themselves in a position to win the game, but they, after huge amount of pressure piling the Highlanders for about 15 minutes, the Western Force were basically, I think basically what happened was the Western Force, the Highlanders trying to get the ball out of their own half. One of the Western Force player ran up and made a huge tackle on the Highlander player, and the ball gets knocked back, comes loose, and he rolls back inside the Highlanders 22, and the Highlander fullback gets the ball, and he thinks that the ball is inside the 22, so he kicks the ball out on the full, and turns out the ball was carried back because it was knocked out of the hands and rolled back into the Highlanders half, and inside the Highlanders 22. So the Western Force had a line out inside the Highlanders 22. The line out comes in. There was a few quick balls. The Western Force got really close to the try line, and eventually the Western Force literally got tackled on the try line. Eventually, Ian Pryor was on the field for Kubeli. He looks to his right. There was 3 forwards lining up very close to receive the ball, and he picked the furthest one out, which was Wagner. Very flat pass. Wagner, a very flat and low pass. Wagner was already crouching and in position to just launch himself into the try line. So he gets the ball, he's already crouching, and he just launches himself forward. He still be sure, reaches out, and he gets the try down for the Western Force. Just really good body position, really good posture, really pinpoint accurate ball from Pryor. Very good ball from him to get to Wagner. 78th minute. It took them pretty much the entire duration of the second half to score their first try in the second half. And that was the final score. Miotti were not able to convert this one. Once again, hits the post. Once again, that was a bit unlucky. So that was it. Final score, 15 points to 25. Western Force, they had a really, really good second half, to be really, really honest. And the Western Force were by far the more dominant team in the second half over the Highlanders. That's very impressive, considering it's the Highlanders are very, very good, right up there in Super Rugby team rankings. Second or third, depends how you look at it, in New Zealand. And Western Force, very close. And Highlanders defense, very, very good. And once again, their yeah, their forwards, their loose forwards, were able to rescue the team again and again and again and again from the depths of hell to turn the ball over and salvage the situation and diffuse the pressure from the Western Force. Yeah, so very good performance, but overall I'm still quite happy about that performance from the Force. The second half score, 5 points to 5, that was pretty good. It's just the first half that ran away from them a little bit. Yeah, but second half was very competitive and very, very good performance by the Force. But anyway, big games tomorrow. Crusaders versus Reds. Chiefs versus Brumbies. This is the grand final week tomorrow, okay? Forget about the actual final. No one cares about that. This is the final this weekend that everybody wants to see. Reds, Crusaders, Brumbies, Chiefs. Winner takes all. So, yeah. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.